Hi, this is Christi Sowell with the Fostering Collective. We are blessed today with greatness. I'm hanging out with Russ, Baliff, and Laurie and Frank, and we are so excited that they're just going to hang out with us for a little while and just give us some great insight on how to work through some trying times that we're all going through right now. First of all, I would just love if you would just take just a few minutes and just share a little bit about yourselves.
You want me to go first?
Oh, you
Ladies
go,
first.
Go right ahead.
You never know what Russ and I are going to say.
You never know.
I am a clinical social worker, play therapist, brain gym instructor. I do all sorts of things, but I've been in the foster care world since the early 1990s up in Cincinnati, Ohio, and started out with Focus on Youth, a therapeutic foster care agency. So I've been with foster kids since then, and then came home, grew up here, and went to work for Tyler Counseling and Assessment, and worked with children there as well. And then Russ and I joined forces. It's been about a year now. About a year.
It's been a good year.
So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Well, I think all of this started for me with my parents being foster parents, and me being one of the biological children. So in a way, I backed into this field. I'm very glad I did. My wife and I have also adopted a child. So that's on a personal level. I'd say on a professional level, I've been working in this field about 25 years. I started working with the state MHMR system, and then I've worked in various settings and corrections and residential treatment centers, but really all of the children I've worked with have been traumatized. And I would say 90% of my caseload for the past 25 years have been children in foster care in some form of state custody. My training is, like Laurie, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I provide a lot of play therapy and trauma-based counseling. Trust-based relational intervention is a modality that I, like a lot of others in Tyler, are using now.
I did that too, I forgot to say that.
Absolutely. Laurie, TBRI,
Yeah,
all over
same
it.
thing.
All over it.
All over it.
Yeah. I am really excited to be working with Laurie Ann. I've moved from a lot of residential setting type work to being in the office more, where I'm at about half the week, and I enjoy working with the kids and the families. I think working in-home services gave me a lot of chances to work with foster parents, and just realizing that as the foster parents go, so go the kids in a lot of ways. And so spending time with the foster parents, I've learned, is not only imperative, but something I really enjoyed through the years, especially being in their homes. So I'll quit rambling and let us move on.
No, we could hear about all the great things y'all do all day. So I'm a mom of 5. I am working still. My husband, unfortunately, is still going to the office. We're attempting this homeschool thing. Life can be a little trying. I'm hearing from other mamas, life can be a little challenging. Sometimes we're just doing good to make it to lunchtime. So do you have any tools in your tool bag? Anything that you're seeing going on right now that you're hearing, hey, this is going to help you get through?
Well, if it's any comfort, my sister is an educator in Allen with a master's degree, and she's calling me up, and she's like, this homeschooling stuff's rough, and she teaches first grade, okay? And she's been doing it over 25 years. So if you have a classroom teacher saying this is brutal,
right,
it's brutal.
It's brutal. It's brutal. So then we add to that our kids that normally live in their fear brains and
Right.
are dealing with the stress of life 24/7. All of those emotions on top of all this. What can we do as parents? What can we provide as a ministry to be able to help love and connect with our kiddos in a little bit better way?
Well, one thing that I have noticed is a lot of anxiety, understandably so, on the part of caregivers and parents. and not knowing what to do. One thing I'm hearing is they're staying in bed longer, and so
Guilty.
The parents
are staying in
are.
bed longer, and the kids are watching TV till noon, and then they're starting school. Well, what I'm finding I'm getting a response from is the suggestion that you get up before everyone else as a parent, and you plan the day. No electronics before noon. You plan the day in a way that's realistic, and whatever you decide you're going to accomplish between 9 and 6, whether that's school or other tasks, cut that back by 25%. Take some things off your list, and just try to get those things done, because I think people are feeling really overwhelmed right now. The lines of the schedule is not clearly demarcated. It's just kind of a big amorphous ball in these families. And I can say my family that's well attuned to homeschooling is struggling with the same thing. So we're finding that it's helping us as well just to pre-plan the day a little more deliberately. That's one thing that's helped.
Get up, get dressed,
Yeah.
get a routine.
Be deliberate. And it's really hard to be deliberate when you are you're at home.
I've got all day to do this.
Home is where we
Right.
come to not be so deliberate at the end of the day
Right.
and to decompress. That's how we're acculturated.
Right.
So it's a big shift to do that.
And one of the things I'd like to add, Russ, 1 hour of 24-hour news. If you've got CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, BBC, I don't care what it is, if you have that TV on all day, it's gonna send you into panic.
Right.
Yes.
So 1 hour per day.
Okay.
Well, the kids, of course, are watching the news, and but
Yeah,
again, as the adults go, so go the kids, and so
Right.
right.
yeah, mom and dad.
And it's frightening
Yeah.
what we're seeing on the news right now.
And when the kids go to bed, mom and dad are staying up and watching this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's really important to take that in small doses as well. You're hearing the same thing over and over. Shut it off.
Yeah,
So the self-care, taking care of
Yes.
ourselves, getting up early in the morning as parents, kind of having a little time for us, keeping ourselves in check, not being stressed out
and
by watching and getting caught up all in the world.
right. And what
Absolutely.
Miss Laurie Ann always has a visual
Love visuals.
to kind of go along with this, and I don't know if you can see this here. I always say life is like a rectangle, and you've got to feed these quadrants of mental, emotional is in one section, relational, spiritual time, and physical. We've got to have these 4 needs. Now I know this isn't real high rent here. Okay, so you kind of got to check in with these quadrants. How am I mentally doing? How am I checking in with my emotions, my thoughts? Relationally, am I reaching out? Am I calling? You know, since we're on this social distancing, am I calling one friend a day? I make sure that I call at least one of my good friends a day. How are you doing? And checking in.
Okay.
Reach out. Physically, get out and go for a walk. Russ, I don't know about you. I'm seeing people out walking like I haven't seen since,
Yeah.
I'm outing our age here, since about the 1970s,
Yeah, it's amazing.
80s. Parents out with their kids in the evening walking, riding bikes. You've got to get that physical element to it. And of course, your spiritual God time, mental, emotional, spiritual, and relational. And if you're not feeding those 4 quadrants and you're feeling yucky, you're going to look like a trapezoid, okay? So when you feel like that trapezoid, well, have I really filled those 4 quadrants? And odds are you haven't gotten out and exercised, or you haven't drank water, or you're not getting enough good sleep. Or maybe you haven't connected to one of your friends, or maybe you haven't had your prayer time. And odds are it's going to be in that emotional rectangle.
That's
I
really
love
good.
that.
And then a really wonderful lady I once knew, she grew up in India, and I have at the bottom of this, she's no longer with us anymore. She died last year, but she said, Laurie, what you need to get through life is what do I need to put on my list that I need to get through life. She moved here from India and she had 2 small children. And she said, you know, I had to go get a manicure once a week, and that's how I got through life. And I think in times like this, you need to ask yourself, what do I need on my list to get through life? And pick 3 things you need to get through life. And it may be right now that I'm going for a walk, I'm turning off the TV, I'm connecting with a friend, something.
So it doesn't have to be
Huge.
huge, profound things.
Yeah.
It's just,
No.
That's really good, because if you don't feed yourself, then how can you give out, right? You've got
Right.
to feed yourself.
You know the old expression, if you're on the airplane and they start to have problems and the masks come down, and they always say, mothers, dads, put the mask on yourself first before you put it on the child.
Right.
And why is that? What
You
do
got to take care of you first, or you can't take care of anyone else, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And when I start feeling yucky in life, okay, what is it have I not fed in my rectangle? And odds are I haven't been connecting to God, or I haven't been connecting to my friends, I haven't been working out. You know, I can
Yes.
usually label it. I'm mentally stressed.
In a time like this, I think deliberately connecting comes a lot of times from planning in the first part of the day what you're going to do. Doesn't mean you can't add things along the way. But at a bare minimum, tell yourself, I'm going to call someone I haven't called in a long time. Tell yourself you're going to have movement. Movement, I know this is an overused saying, but it is medicine.
Yes.
Movement, whether it's mental or physical, has got to happen. We're wired to move. And so I ask myself, how am I going to move mentally today? Well, that's going to require me to have some input. It's going to require me to have some time with God to realize my thoughts alone are not enough to do this or to meet the needs of those around me. I need God's thoughts in me. That comes through prayer. It also comes through reading and just being quiet and listening. Of course, I don't have all the answers, but that's why I need God. Movement also requires me to physically move. And sometimes when I'm really down and in despair, causing my body to physically do things I don't feel like doing gets my mind and my spirit more where it needs to be. Just telling yourself, look, I'm going to get up and walk around the house. I'm not going to stop for 10 minutes. And hopefully that's outside, sunshine. If you can do that.
Yesterday was so beautiful. We just sat outside for a good hour and a half.
And that gets you the vitamin
It just
D.
does.
And I once read somewhere, Russ, this reminds me, they said walking is the therapist of the mind, getting out and walking.
Absolutely. Yeah, I believe from personal experience. It's a mood changer, and when we're in despair and we're supposed to be in our houses, people are being still.
Watching that 24-hour news.
One of the number one problems I've been
Then you're
dealing
a
with,
cat on a hot tin roof.
I've been doing a lot of teletherapy, and people I'm looking at the backdrop, and they're usually in a darker room. They're hunkered down, they're not moving, and they're generally a little more depressed, adults and kids. So I'm encouraging people to move. If you're prone to do a little bit more than just walk, I will say this: if anyone that can do this, heat up your core. That means sweat for at least 15 minutes. A good hard walk, because that not only helps you with your immune needs right now. We all need strong immune systems right now, but that's also going to help you have a good interchange of just your biochemistry. And if you don't cause your system to move, you're not hydrating to help that happen, you're not sweating, you're going to have overall less movement physically, and as a result, less movement mentally. So just remember, movement is medicine.
Which is one of the 4 quadrants of the rectangle.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm getting up in the morning, I'm having my structure, I've done my exercise,
Had your God time.
had my God time, drank lots of water. My child is having a meltdown. They're biting each other.
And before you get into that, see what you just said, you got into every quadrant, Christi.
Okay.
That fast.
Okay. So I did all these things.
Right.
Now I need to get my kid to do all these things too.
Okay.
Maybe thinking that. But it's a little more challenging because they're not wanting to exercise. Let's say they're 12 years old and they're just going to be resistant and I can't physically make them. And they're in meltdown mode. Do you have anything that you can recommend that we can do when we're in a meltdown to get them from out of that fight or flight?
Of course,
mode?
you know I'm really into brain gym. And the hookup, and I'll demonstrate how to do that,
Okay.
helps calm the neurosystem. Now, you don't teach a hookup to a child when they're mad, but it helps. It's the fastest way to calm the body.
Okay.
And a lot of your kids know how to do it. They teach it in kindergarten. It's real simple. You cross your legs like this and go up. Now,
Okay.
I go to sleep like that and I wake up like that. But what you're doing, you're hitting. You can lay down and do a hookup. You can stand up and do a hookup. And that helps get you centered. Now, another thing you can do if you're in fear, and a lot of parents are in fear, you can do a brain button. You probably did this in school when you were taking tests. Man, I just can't remember that thought. And you can put one hand back here. This is going to calm the back of your brain and the front of your brain. And I'm also in a hookup. That's going to help with fear. And it's positive points, positive points, a balance button, and a hookup. And that will help soothe your aggravated nervous system.
Okay.
But back to your question.
So that's great
Yes.
to do, but I am is there something that I can do visually? I think you've showed this to me before. So I can do my body perhaps in such a way, my child's having a meltdown, they're not going to do a hookup.
Yes,
They're
you don't-
fighting a resistance.
Right.
What do I do with my body?
Okay, you can do, now see how I'm sitting with you at a 45-degree angle?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to encounter an aggressive, upset child
Right.
head on. Doesn't that feel more defensive?
Right.
Right?
Intimidating.
So being at an angle will help. Have you found that to be
Absolutely.
true as well?
Okay.
And that's a way to diffuse. I would say maybe in the morning, if you could go back to what Russ was saying, if you could get the kids up and moving and break your playtime and your school time up with some breaks, some structural breaks. Maybe you can elaborate
If
more
you
on
start the
this.
day with chaos, it's not going to get any better probably. So what happens a lot of times is parents are tired, fatigued, they just kind of let the day happen. So the kids kind of already doing their own thing, and then they try what we all try is the consequence thing. Well, you kind of
Right.
pass the point of the consequences working. So if you have a day that's already gotten off the rails, and it's 11 in the morning, first of all, don't do what's already not working. Not against consequences, but if they're not working, give yourself a break, take a step back. Ask yourself, how do I hit the reset button right now?
Go into your hookup.
Yes.
Go into your hookup, but if you can, get them outside, get them on the
Yeah.
porch. Change the context if possible. If you can't go outside and it's raining, go to another room and make sure the variables are minimized. Turn off all the electronics, dim the lights a little bit, do anything you can to change the mood state. Turn off the background music, get the phones away, and then try the hookup. Try to get them to do something physically.
And do it in a playfully engaging way. I think that's so important
Yeah.
as parents. We feel like we're the authoritarian. We're
Right.
going to demand these things from our children, and we need to go about it in a very
I would
different
say-
way. Especially right now, work on those connecting moments
Yes.
and playfully engaging.
And I would say the
Yeah.
parents go into the hookup first and do a reset.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That, when you were talking
Yes.
about that,
And
and
you-
just hit that reset. And do that 4-square breathing. I don't know if you all are familiar with 4-square breathing. And you add that with a hookup, because I know we as adults, we're all terrified. I mean, we're all wondering if we're going to have our jobs.
Right.
How am I going to make my house payment? There's a lot going on. So you need to implement one of the fastest ways also to calm down the body is hookups and breath.
Okay.
So you can do a 4-square breathing, and we'll just pretend that this is a square. It's sort of a square, isn't it, Russ? So you would breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold, breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold. And if you as the parent can get a handle on your breathing,
Mm-hmm.
that is gonna help. It all flows from the top down.
Absolutely. It's good. It's good.
I think a lot of us as adults need to be doing 4 square breathing,
Mm-hmm.
brain buttons, balance
Right,
buttons, and
right.
positive points,
Right.
because we're all concerned.
And this isn't like rocket science or anything. This
No.
is simple. These are very simple things that we're talking about here that can be hugely impactful in the way that your house functions, especially from day to day normally, but then on top of that, especially during this crisis.
So one thing I hear you saying, and just to say it in a different way,
Mm-hmm.
is before you can help the kids with their chaos, you got to help yourself with your own chaos.
Yeah.
Because the kids are going to do what you do, not what you want them to do necessarily.
They can feel what's going on. I've had more people come into my office and sit down and say, well, now, little Timmy does not know that we are going through a divorce. Little Timmy does not know that Daddy's
Yes,
doing
he
this.
does.
He doesn't know anything. Well, then little Timmy comes in for his counseling session with Miss Laurie Ann, and he's like, well, I'm going to tell you what's going on, Miss Laurie Ann. My parents are getting divorced and my dad's doing it. They know. They can read their parents, they can read nonverbals. Most of what we know, what's the percentage on that? 70% from what our energy and our nonverbals.
Something like that.
It's high. So kids know and they feel it. So if your head's on straight, if you're practicing calm, structure, simple routines, it's gonna all roll downhill.
Let's not forget about the diet thing.
Oh,
No.
Oh,
We
yeah.
can't eat cookies and chips all
No.
day.
You can talk about that as probably better than I can, but I know hydration, sugar intake, caffeine intake, those.
Monster drinks.
Oh my
That's
goodness. Don't expect good things to happen if you're
Yeah.
not going to pay attention to the diet, especially during a stressful time. It's
Right.
so critical. It doesn't mean
Right.
you can't have any fun, but
Right.
if you're not burning off any calories, you're not causing much interchange with your biochemistry. You need to watch that intake even more. But even if you are getting a good heat up of your core and you're sweating and you're hydrating,
But you're eating ho-hos and Coca-Cola.
what should we expect if we're getting a lot of sugar intake?
Right.
What do you think, Laurie?
It's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad,
Yeah.
Russ.
Yeah, it's
gonna
gonna
be
be
bad.
rough.
Yeah, it's gonna be rough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one thing I've heard, this is funny, I've seen it in my own family. So families have stockpiled on all this extra food, which is there for when you don't have food, but everybody just they're eating twice as much food, and they're just,
Well,
they're
and we
bored.
eat when we're bored
they're
too.
just, they're just putting it down. So, so much for the rations, and
Right.
it's good. It's good to have rations, but again, if you don't have something else to do with your day, if you're like me, you're probably going to eat more. And so I think it goes back to pre-planning the day, and let's shoot for 60% success. Let's not go for 100%. You might get 80, but 100's not realistic. But I bet 60 feels a lot better than 30. In your daily pre-planning and how you're gonna go about the day, and hopefully by 6 or 8 o'clock you can look back and say, that little list I had at the beginning of the day, I fulfilled a good portion of it. Pat yourself in the back a little bit.
One of the things I love to say is, I am a genius and I applied my wisdom. That's an important thing to say to yourself. And then at the end of the day, say, how did I apply my wisdom? Well, we got up, we made the beds, we got 60% of that done, we got out and exercised it. I was a genius and I applied my wisdom. A small mantra like that will help you get through to those successful points and recognizing your successful points.
I love
Absolutely,
that.
that's very good. That's really good.
Can we step back to food for just a minute? Because I want to talk, one thing that we have at our home is what I like to call a yes basket. Let's go to Karen Purposely in for just a minute.
Sure.
I have this basket on my counter. It's 3-tiered actually. It's got fruit in it, and then the bottom has like all kinds of protein bars, crackers, peanut butter crackers, things like that. That my kids, no matter what time of day, they can go and they can grab something out of it there and eat it. It could, because a lot of our kiddos come and they have those abandonment issues and they have food issues, hoarding because they didn't have anything for, some time or whatever. We won't get into all the psychologicalness of it, but let's talk about that for just a little bit, because I think there has to be kind of a healthy balance with that, but just maybe, I know that I've had several moms talking about that and how their kiddos are stress eating, and so maybe if we could just hit that point just a little bit too.
Well, I think that when we're stress eating, we got to realize that there is probably no such thing as enough, because we're trying to fill up our emotions. But having said that, we do need to eat, and we need the snacks. We need the consistency. It's just maybe controlling how much we eat and how much we eat. But we do need the intake, even in between the 3 major meals, to help us regulate. I think always, but especially at a time like this. For parents that are struggling with whether they are giving their kids a little too much freedom with the food, if you're going to make an error, give them too much freedom. If you're trying to regulate, you're going to do a better job than just giving them whatever they want. But I think you also want to avoid being overly pensive at a time like this. Food is more than food. Food is it's connection, it's communication, and needs being met. Food needs to be eaten when possible altogether. It needs to not just be, I'm standing in the pantry shoving it down, hey, I got my snack. Food is relational. When possible, preparing it together, even if it's putting cheese and crackers on a plate, doing it together, eating it together, and one reason
connection.
There's something really good.
Filling two of those quadrants.
My girls love when we cook together. In fact, that's one thing that we've kind of just taken ownership together of doing that. Help me, and I start out with kind of playfully engaging, what are we gonna have for dinner tonight? So I get their input, and that way they're gonna wanna eat it and things too.
And you're filling those emotional, physical needs in your quadrant.
Good. That's really good.
Yeah, it's very simple. One of the neat things that I'm seeing is a lot of my clients are picking up old instruments or art or sewing. And I myself have picked up my instruments that I haven't played in years. And I've noticed a lot of my kids have ukuleles, and they're getting their ukuleles out or their flutes out. And that's very comforting, I think, in times like this.
Yeah, I think the reemergence of the essential is one way to describe something I see happening with people.
Music.
What is essential? And we need to ask ourselves what's essential. Because we're flooded with all these things that we think are imperatives, and they're really not. But there are essentials. I think music at a time like this, especially music that you create, I think that goes in the essential
into
category.
the soul.
So therapeutic.
Yes.
Therapeutic.
Creating is important, and I
Yes.
think piggybacking on music with an instrument you've learned is creating, but I think also just making things together. Simple crafts you're doing, the cause
Family
and
game night.
cause and effect is for a child to see I did this and I saw it happen is a bigger deal than we sometimes think, because that is helping to combat what traumatized kids have lost. What they thought or did or felt didn't matter. They were just traumatized. And so the more cause and effect you can bring to bear through, which is really ultimately I think what play therapy is about, helps kids to heal. It helps us as adults to feel like we're actually helping our children, and we can see a tangible way that in fact we are.
Well, and then encouraging them when they're doing it, instead of plugging our ears. Oh my goodness, my child's playing the ukulele. No, encouraging them. I can't wait to hear what song you've learned today, or hey, I'm not good at stuff like that, but hey, let me help you with that, or whatever they're doing. But yeah, that's great. So, jumping around a little bit, what about our families? So they're getting a lot of new placements right now. We've had several families getting new placements. So amongst our chaos, when we get a new placement in, how do you recommend we kind of cope and walk through that a little bit? Let's talk about that.
It's not business as usual.
No, it's not.
It's not.
I was going to say what came to mind for me is chaos upon chaos. So you're
Yes.
really going to want to hit those principles of structure and simplicity. I think my mind goes back to Dr. Karen Purvis when she said, you know, when you adopt a child from Russia, you don't take them over to the Super Walmarts on Wednesday when you got them on Monday. You know, I think you have to simplify and kind of cocoon and bring in the parameters.
Yeah, avoid power struggles when possible. You're not going to reparent them in a week. They've got to acclimate even more than normal. When they're coming from an environment where there was some kind of failure, they're probably aware, if they're at least age 6 or higher, that there's chaos, extra chaos in the world right now. They're coming to you, maybe testing you at first before they decide if they can trust you or not. So I think focusing on the big things, you want to provide them a context, a way to play, food. You want to provide them with simple contact. A lot of redirection's probably not going to give you a lot of benefit with them, but being available to them, paying attention to your facial gestures, your body positioning, your tone, the speed of what's going on in the house. Don't babysit them with electronics. Sit at the table across from them and talk to them about seemingly benign things to build a connection. And if you wait long enough, they'll probably tell you what you want to know about what they need. Listen.
And I think that emotes a calm atmosphere.
Yeah.
How your tone, how you're practicing felt safety, then that rolls downhill.
I think that's very true. Very good point. Yeah.
So, at what point do you recommend that we reach out to professionals like you?
As a caregiver?
As a caregiver, as a parent, if at what point in a crisis do you think that we
My
need to
mind goes to respite. Never, and I'm going back to my days of my therapeutic foster care work and focus on youth. Never hesitate to take respite when you feel you need it.
I think that's a good point.
Know who's in your safety net if you need to reach out to your good friends in the fostering collective. I know you all have a great men's support group, women's support, mom's support group.
I think some indicators are loss of sleep as a caregiver, appetite changes, you're not able to rebalance your mood very well, like maybe you could do before. And a new one is financial anxiety. When you are feeling a lot of financial anxiety, you're probably not going to make very good decisions. You need to reach out to someone, even if it's a counselor who's obviously not a financial counselor. They can help plug you into someone that can help you make good decisions, because people are right now starting to make decisions about what bills are going to pay, what bills they're not going to pay. Again, what are the essentials? That is becoming a necessity, not just a matter of stewardship. People are getting in survival mode a little bit. Not all families, but some are. Some that I'm talking to.
Sure.
And people need guidance. They feel guilty. They've never had to deal with finances in this way before. And they need some real world advice that is different than a lot of Dave Ramsey training, but it might be a little different than they heard in their Dave Ramsey training.
Right.
Because times are different right now.
Right.
And a question I often ask myself is, who is in my safety net? Who is in my who are my people that I can turn to? Who do I trust?
Right.
Is it my pastor? Is it my best friend? You know, is it respite? That's kind of up there with, I'm a genius and apply my wisdom.
Yeah, I think
Know
so
who's
too.
in your safety net.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay to allow ourselves to reach out to professionals like you and not feel like we're failing. I think sometimes we as providers and as caregivers, we feel like if we have to open up and admit there's a struggle, we're failing. And,
I'll tell you a secret. I saw it in a fortune cookie once. The normal people are the ones you don't know. Okay?
So true, so true.
Yes.
So true, so true. Wow.
We're all human.
That's good.
It is good, isn't it, Russ?
It's also scary.
It is.
Well,
But- Yeah.
well, anything else that you can think of that we didn't talk about that we should share with our families?
One thing I just want to say is when you got into helping children, whether it's adoption or fostering, I don't think I've met anyone that got into it because they thought they had all of the answers. Some people got into this out of a relationship with God. Some of it got into it out of a sense of mission. But I don't think I've met anyone that from the get-go thought they had everything to meet all needs within them. So at a time like this, I just want to remind people that you don't have everything it takes now either. It is so critical that you not beat yourself up, that you not waste energy on guilt, that you reach outside yourself to your church community, your social supports. Go to people that don't have all the answers like me, because I will help you get to someone that does have the answer. At a time like this, there are people I'm working with on a pro bono basis. I mean, we're in a crisis situation. I encourage everyone to call a local counselor. Laurie and I are certainly available, and we can tell you other counselors that are available.
And of course, PATH, People Attempting to Help.
Yes.
It's always a great organization.
Yes. Reach out, do not isolate, because the first reaction is to isolate, withdraw, hope it gets better. If I thought isolation would make it get better, I would say be sure and isolate. Don't isolate. Emotionally, spiritually, physically, avoid isolation.
So how can our families get in touch with you? They realize, hey, I need a little bit of extra wisdom to get through this.
Call Christi Sowell. She has our
They-
numbers.
That's right.
So,
we both have websites.
okay, and
Yes.
we'll add those on
Sure.
our link as well and share.
Yes,
So-
and at a time like this, I'm also having some people, those that are trying to schedule appointments can go to the online calendar. We also have phone numbers, because sometimes I have questions that can't quite be addressed with that calendar, and they just have to call, because maybe what they're asking me doesn't even require an actual appointment. I just talk to them over the phone and say, you need to talk to so-and-so and connect them with someone else, and I serve as a resource. I know Laurie serves as a great resource to people as well, connecting with others in the community that can meet specified needs that maybe we don't specialize in.
Well, I thank y'all so much for your time. I
Oh,
know that-
absolutely.
That you have helped me out personally on many occasions. I'm forever grateful to have you on speed dial. And,
Oh, hey.
and I will apologize in advance for all of the years to come that will be. But thank you so much for
And
sharing
thank you
today.
for the Fostering Collective for
Absolutely.
helping all these children from hard places.
Yes, we
Doing
very
good
much
work.
appreciate you.
We're
Good
honored
work.
to do it.